Greetings again, XD Nation. Today I want to talk to you again about being an extreme disciple and what might be required of us. And to kind of lead into this, I want to give you a story, a true story. One of my college classmates, while I was attending my undergrad degree, during the summertime, between I think it was our junior and senior year, she went to this major city and she became a streetwalker at night with prostitutes. And of course you're thinking, well, doesn't sound very Christian-like. And she was a very, just one of the most innocent-looking Christians that you could ever think to see, is a sweet-looking little girl. But she was out late at night in this major city walking the streets with prostitutes. Well, what she wasn't doing was prostituting, but what she was doing was ministering. And so that goes against any of those things that the grown-ups told me when I was a kid. Nothing good happens after midnight. Well, apparently something good can happen after midnight. Ministry can be done. But she was out ministering to the prostitutes, and I like to think of it as she became a lady of the evening to the lady of the evenings just to save a few. And that leads me into our verse for today, and what I think all of us will be focusing on this week. I'm going to read it. It's 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 19 through 23. Though I am free and belong to no man, I make myself a slave to everyone to win as many as possible. To the Jews I became like a Jew to win the Jews. To those under the law I became like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law I became like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak I became weak to win the weak. I have become all things to all men, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. And I'm going to focus again here on the leaders. That's where my focus is going to be when I'm doing these little blogs. So, speaking from a leadership perspective, I think the last thing a leader likes to look at himself as is a servant to all. Made myself a slave to everyone. You know, a leader is like, no, everybody, is a slave to me. And church leadership, what's tough is that you're really always trying to please the majority. And, at least make sure that everything is nice and balanced. But what we end up doing is we end up saying, well, let's just hold on to tradition. And make those that are coming in be slave to our traditions. Not be open to anything new. Let's just whoever comes to us, we will make them a slave to our traditions. And I think culturally speaking, that's a mistake, because what we don't understand, many people, at least I guess they're blinded by this, is that with each generation is a new culture. Some people just think of culture as having to be based on race or ethnicity, but it's not. Age is also one of those barriers. So what we need to do in leadership is to try to engage those people that we would normally enslave, to see what it would take to save them. We know what it takes to preserve. We know what it takes to preserve a church. Just keep on doing what we've always been doing. But what does it take to grow a church? Well, growing a church, I believe, means becoming all things to all people. It means getting out there and getting to know those people, maybe putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, maybe serving. Maybe for some leaders, serving is uncomfortable. Listening to someone or being under the leadership of someone else just for that set, whatever it is that you're doing at that time. Maybe you go out in the community and you're at a function and you can wait tables or clean tables or whatever it is that you can do to serve others. But I thought, well, when Paul is saying here, he's saying he became a Jew to the Jews. We're like, well, that's easy. That's not a stretch for Paul. He's a Jew. Although he did kind of separate himself from the Jews when he became a Christian. So in order to become a Jew to the Jews, he would still go and meet with them where they met. So I thought, well, how can this apply to me? Not even just as a leader, but as a Christian. But even the bosses, go to your break room. a senior person going to the break room, you know, and seeing what they think needs to be done. The senior member at a, you know, or the senior minister at a church, going to the staff and just being, what can I do to help you be successful so the church will be successful? You know, and that's not really a stretch. Just like with Paul being a Jew, you know, he went to where the Jews went. I also thought maybe even being a sports fan to the sports fans. Guess what? This is not for everybody, because you still have to know where your strengths and weaknesses are. But there are plenty of TVs at establishments in town, and some of them happen to be sports bars, where you can still probably get a nice plate of nachos. And you can still sit in there and listen and talk baseball to people who talk baseball. Where are you going to find the best sports fans in the country? You're going to find them in those places where they have 50 televisions, not in your living room, because you're not wanting to get uncomfortable. You're not wanting to hear what they're going to talk about at the bar, you know. And as long as you can look past that temptation of alcohol, which I have zero temptation for that. So as long as you're comfortable with that, then you can go there and just be a sports fan to the sports fans, just to save a few. Not to say that being a sports fan is a sin, but some of them, you know, would rather spend time in that establishment than they would in church or getting to know Christ. So really what it boils down to is, what are you willing to become to save a few? Where are you willing to put yourself? How uncomfortable are you willing to get to save a few? I mean, for Paul to become weak, even though he knew what the weaknesses meant, they meant nothing. You know, those people that still thought they had to abstain from certain foods or follow the food laws, even though they weren't doing it necessarily anymore for religious purposes, but they might be doing it for even dietary restrictions, or there were some that still followed the food laws. Paul wasn't going to go in there and say, well, no, I want bacon. I don't care if you don't eat bacon. I know I can eat bacon, and I want bacon. He's not going to do that. We didn't go to a house of a vegetarian and order a steak. You know, we become what we can become within the boundaries, of course, of you know, the sinful nature. Trying not to definitely not getting into the sinful nature of things, but remaining pure and blameless as you can. But still going out there and bringing Christianity out into the world and into a situation where you normally would have been uncomfortable, because there you might just find those few that you need to save. So find yourself in an uncomfortable situation and go be extreme. God bless.